At a moment my family should have cherished, my son Ethan sent a text. "Mom, we've decided it's time to cut ties. The life he enjoyed, I built." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just planned. He wouldn't see the cut until he was bleeding. Like, share, and tell me where you're listening from, because this story is just getting started. It was a Tuesday evening, just after sunset. I was sitting in my favorite armchair, a cup of herbal tea cooling beside me, when my phone vibrated. I picked it up, expecting a message from my bridge club or a simple news alert. Instead, it was a text from Ethan, my only son. The words hit me like a physical blow. "Mom, we've decided it's time to cut ties. Don't plan on coming to family dinners anymore." My breath caught in my throat. I reread it, convinced I must have misunderstood. Cut ties? From me? The woman who had given him everything, who had built the very empire he now presided over. My thumb hovered over the reply button, 1,000 angry questions forming in my mind. Then, I checked the family group chat. An eerie silence hung there, a void where there should have been a flurry of bewildered messages. Instead, a single notification stood out. Serena, Ethan's wife, had sent a crying laughing emoji. Not a laughing crying emoji, mind you, but the one where tears streamed down a smiling face, an undeniable sign of malicious glee. It was a final, undeniable stab. That emoji, more than Ethan's blunt text, cemented my resolve. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a temporary spat. This was a calculated, deliberate act of disrespect and dismissal. A lifetime of small slights, of being overlooked, of my opinions being brushed aside, coalesced into a sharp, painful clarity. They had always treated me like an ATM with a pulse, a source of endless funds and zero authority. For years, I had tolerated being excluded from major family decisions, from holidays that suddenly became couples-only affairs, from quiet whispers behind closed doors about the future of Vance Enterprises, my company. The irony was so bitter it made my mouth ache. Their entire lavish lifestyle, the sprawling estate, the luxury cars, the designer clothes, the exotic vacations, all of it was funded by the very company I had poured my life into building. Vance Enterprises was my blood, sweat, and tears. I had started it from nothing, a small textile business, and grown it into a multi-million-dollar corporation. And now, they deemed me irrelevant, a nuisance, an old woman to be pushed aside. A cold calm settled over me. The initial shock gave way to a steel-hard resolve. "Irrelevant?" I muttered to the empty room. "They think I'm irrelevant?" A dark, powerful thought formed in my mind. I'd give him scissors so sharp he wouldn't see the cut until he was already bleeding. My heart, which had been racing, began to beat with a slow, steady rhythm. The time for tears was over. The time for action had begun. My immediate next step was to collect every piece of evidence I could find. Over the years, I had developed a habit of keeping meticulous records, not because I expected betrayal, but because that was simply how I ran my business. Now, those habits would serve a different, far more personal purpose. I opened my hidden safe, pulling out bank statements, old emails, even recorded phone conversations I'd had with various employees about Ethan and Serena's questionable spending habits and management decisions. Just as I finished compiling my initial collection, my phone began to ring. It was Ethan, then Serena, then Ethan again. Call after call, message after message. I could almost hear the panic in his voice, the realization of what he had just done. He must have seen my reply in the group chat, sent moments after their despicable emoji. "Enjoy your last family dinner." I let their calls go unanswered, watching the screen light up with their frantic attempts to reach me. They had cut me off. Now I was cutting them off. The next morning, I made a call. I didn't waste time with sentiment. I needed someone sharp, ruthless, someone who understood corporate warfare down to its bones. I needed Penelope Stern. Penelope arrived at my home later that afternoon, her presence alone commanding attention. She walked into my living room like she'd just walked straight out of a hostile takeover and won, her tailored suit crisp, her gaze piercing. Her reputation preceded her. A legal shark, known for dismantling empires and building new ones, all with unflappable calm. "Eleanor," she said, her voice low and confident. "You said you had an urgent matter. Something about Vance Enterprises?" I gestured to the folder on the coffee table. "Penelope, I still own 49.8% of Vance Enterprises." Her eyebrows rose slightly, a flicker of surprise in her otherwise impassive face. They had clearly underestimated me, assuming I'd fully handed over the reins. But I had always kept a substantial portion, a silent understanding that I was the ultimate safeguard for the company's future. "And," I continued, pushing the thick folder across the table, "this is why I called you." Inside were months, no, years, of documented evidence. Bank statements highlighted lavish spending on things that had nothing to do with company business. Serena's luxury shopping sprees, Ethan's investments in failed personal ventures using company funds, the inflated invoices from vendors who just happened to be their friends. Emails detailed their plans to funnel profits into offshore accounts. Recorded conversations, subtly captured by a discreet voice recorder I kept on my desk, revealed them, openly discussing how to inflate costs and evade taxes. There were even photos of them flaunting newly acquired assets, a yacht, a private jet, all paid for with what I now knew was stolen company money. Penelope spent the next hour meticulously going through every document, her expression unchanging. When she finally looked up, her assessment was chillingly precise. "Eleanor, based on this evidence, your son Ethan and his wife Serena are engaged in a systematic pattern of embezzlement, fraud, tax evasion, and a clear breach of fiduciary duty. The scale of this is immense." "So, what do we do?" I asked, my voice steady. "We execute a plan that will dismantle their power entirely," Penelope replied, her eyes gleaming with professional satisfaction. "Here's what I propose. I will arrange for the acquisition of your 49.8% shares through a holding company. But this acquisition will come with very specific clauses. First, an immediate and comprehensive forensic audit of Vance Enterprises, reaching back 5 years. Second, a complete management restructuring, effective immediately upon the sale. The thought of Ethan and Serena, stripped of their power, exposed for their greed, sent a quiet thrill through me. This wasn't just about money. It was about justice, about respect. "There's one more thing," I added, my voice softening slightly as I thought of my grandson. "My grandson, Daniel, he's a good boy, but he's been caught in the middle of their toxicity, seeing a distorted version of success. I want him to understand what real strength looks like. That integrity, not greed, is the foundation of true power." Penelope nodded, a rare, small smile gracing her lips. She raised an imaginary glass. "To the spectacular unfolding of our plan, Eleanor. This will be quite the show." I picked up my cold teacup, feeling a warmth spread through me. It was time for my family to learn a very hard lesson. The days following my "enjoy your last family dinner" message were surprisingly quiet, at least on my end. I ignored all calls from Ethan and Serena, letting their panic stew. Meanwhile, Serena, with her usual inability to read a room, or perhaps the entire atmosphere of impending doom, kept posting on Instagram. Her stories showed a series of carefully curated selfies and smiling family shots, all geotagged at an absurdly expensive restaurant. They were supposedly holding an emergency family meeting, discussing the unexpected hostile takeover attempt of Vance Enterprises. It was a thinly veiled attempt to garner sympathy, painting me as the villain, but it only served to highlight their cluelessness and continued extravagance even in the face of crisis. Then, just after midnight, my phone rang. It was Daniel, my grandson. His voice was strained, filled with a mixture of confusion and distress. "Grandma, what's going on?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Mom and Dad are saying you're losing your mind, that you're acting out of spite. They said you're trying to ruin everything." I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment to bring Daniel into the light. "Daniel, I need you to listen to me carefully. What your parents are telling you is a lie. A convenient, self-serving lie. I could hear his hesitation, his struggle between what he was told and what he instinctively knew about me. I decided to remind him of the truth, not just through words, but through shared history. Do you remember when you broke your arm at summer camp? I asked softly. Your father was too busy with a critical business meeting to pick you up. Your mother was on a spa retreat. Who was there, Daniel? Who stayed by your side in the hospital for 2 nights, making sure you were comfortable, reading you stories? There was a long pause. You were, Grandma, he finally said. His voice tinged with a fresh wave of emotion. You never left. Exactly, I affirmed. And that's just one small example. Your parents have always put their own desires first, regardless of the cost to anyone else, even you. And now, they've done it with Vance Enterprises. Then, I laid it all out for him, as gently as I could, but with absolute truth. Daniel, your parents haven't just been mismanaging the company. They've been systematically stealing from it. It's called corporate embezzlement. I explained how they had diverted funds meant for the company's charitable foundation, which was supposed to support local community projects I had started, into their personal accounts. I told him about the elaborate offshore tax schemes Penelope had already uncovered, designed to hide millions from the IRS and, more importantly, from me, the primary shareholder. They've been inflating expenses, creating ghost employees, and using company money to fund a lifestyle that was never earned, I explained, my voice firm. That new yacht Serena keeps showing off? Paid for with money that should have gone to our employees' benefits or reinvested into the company's growth. The critical business meetings your father was always attending, often code for lavish personal trips disguised as corporate expenses. Daniel was silent for a long time. I could hear his sharp intakes of breath. The weight of my words was settling on him. The immense implications of his parents' actions finally sinking in. Grandma, he whispered. Are you saying, are they criminals? Legally, yes, Daniel. Their actions constitute serious financial crimes, I confirmed. I know this is hard to hear. But I'm going to give them exactly what they've earned through their choices, Daniel. Nothing more, nothing less. They chose this path, not me. He let out an uneasy, shaky laugh. You're terrifying, Grandma. A small, proud smile touched my lips. Thank you, darling. It's taken 67 years to perfect the technique. I wanted him to see that strength wasn't about shouting or bullying, but about quiet resolve and unwavering conviction in the face of injustice. Meanwhile, Penelope Stern was moving at lightning speed. Her preliminary audit findings were already coming in, and they were, in her words, a treasure trove of incompetence. Eleanor, she reported during our daily call, your son and his wife are not just thieves, they're incompetent thieves. They've left digital fingerprints everywhere. It's almost too easy. She detailed how they had used company credit cards for personal luxury items, manipulated expense reports with flimsy justifications, and openly discussed their schemes in company emails they thought were private. The pressure on Ethan began to mount. Penelope's team had formally demanded 5 years of financial records from Vance Enterprises and, crucially, access to all related offshore accounts. The requests were direct, legally precise, and utterly unavoidable. My phone started to vibrate constantly again. Ethan's name flashed across the screen over and over. 63 missed calls in one afternoon. I was at the salon, enjoying a much-needed manicure, when my phone vibrated for the umpteenth time. It's like an expensive vibrator at this point, I mused to my nail technician, who politely pretended not to hear me. I savored the small, quiet victory of knowing he was panicking, truly panicking, while I simply focused on my perfectly polished nails. Penelope's updates continued to trickle in. Ethan was offering increasingly flimsy excuses for the missing documents, blaming administrative errors and system glitches. Serena, on the other hand, was simply audacious. She tried to justify a $50,000 handbag as a necessary administrative expense for entertaining clients. Penelope deadpanned, a hint of amusement in her voice. Apparently, A designer purse is essential for the smooth operation of a multi-million-dollar textile company. I just shook my head. Their delusion was boundless. But soon, their world was going to come crashing down, and I would be there, quietly, to watch it all. The call from Daniel a few nights later was a turning point. His voice, usually so optimistic, was now heavy with the weight of realization. "Grandma," he began, "I have something to confess." My heart gave a little flutter, preparing for the worst. But what followed was completely unexpected. For my business ethics class, I decided to do a project on Vance Enterprises, specifically on how a family business operates financially. He paused, then continued, his voice picking up speed. I started looking into things, cross-referencing company expenses with Mom and Dad's personal spending. I just wanted to see how it all fit together, you know. For the project, I didn't realize what I was actually finding. My breath hitched. "What did you find, Daniel?" "Everything you said, Grandma, and more. It's all there. All the luxury vacations billed as client meetings, the shopping sprees disguised as corporate gifts. I even found records for a $30,000 wine collection that was expensed as research and development for product packaging. I have screenshots, transaction IDs, everything." A wave of emotion washed over me. Not anger, but a profound sadness that my own son and his wife had fallen so far. But beneath that, a surge of fierce pride for Daniel. He had seen the truth, and he had acted with integrity. "Daniel, can you email all of that to me?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hand. Within minutes, my inbox pinged. I opened the attachments and scrolled through. Luxury resort bills with no mention of business, endless designer boutique receipts, a detailed inventory of rare wines. It was exactly as Daniel described, a meticulously documented trail of their greed and blatant abuse of company funds. Penelope had said earlier that they were incompetent thieves, and Daniel's evidence proved it. This wasn't just damning, it was definitive. It was the kind of evidence that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. Without hesitation, I forwarded the entire email to Penelope with a simple subject line: dessert menu. The next morning, Ethan's calls started again, this time with a desperate edge. I finally picked up. "Mom, we need to talk," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "Do we, Ethan?" I replied, my voice as cold and sharp as a winter wind. "Because yesterday, you seemed quite clear about cutting ties. I thought we were done." "No, Mom, it's not like that," he stammered, already trying to backtrack. "Serena is really upset about this whole foundation audit. It's causing a lot of stress." I cut him off, my patience wearing thin. Upset about the foundation audit? Or upset about being caught stealing from a charity meant to help people? A moment of silence, then he blustered. "It's not stealing, Mom. These were legitimate business expenses. Serena needed that handbag for client meetings." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Really, Ethan? In what universe is a Hermes bag a legitimate foundation expense? Are we delivering aid to fashion-deprived regions now? Are we sending designer accessories to build wells in drought-stricken areas?" The sarcasm dripped from every word. His voice escalated, laced with genuine panic. "Mom, this isn't funny. Penelope's people are threatening to fire half the management team. They're demanding access to our personal bank accounts. This is out of control." "Out of control?" I echoed, enjoying the shift in power. "You mean the consequences of your choices are finally catching up to you? Funny how that works, isn't it?" Then, I delivered the final blow, my voice dropping to a chilling whisper. "I hear orange jumpsuits are quite slimming, though." There was a gasp on the other end, followed by frantic breathing. "Mom, stop! Please! We can fix this. We can pay back. Whatever you think we stole." "Oh, really?" I said, feigning surprise. "Because Penelope just informed me your Cayman Islands account was frozen this morning. All 7 of them, in fact." The silence that followed was absolute, deafening. He knew. He finally knew the full extent of what I had done, what Penelope was capable of. The game was over. Later that day, Penelope called me, her voice radiating professional triumph. "Eleanor, your grandson is brilliant. The evidence he provided, combined with what my team has already uncovered, is irrefutable. We've found 7 offshore accounts, not just the one we suspected. Forged vendor contracts, shell companies, diverted funds. It's all there. Enough evidence to bring in federal prosecutors if we chose to. Your son and his wife have built an entire house of cards. So, what's next?" I asked, a sense of grim satisfaction settling in. "Phase 1, the financial dismantling, is well underway," Penelope explained. "But there's another development. Victoria, your daughter, called me. She's already hired a criminal defense attorney for Ethan and Serena." My heart hardened. Victoria, always the compliant one, always trying to keep the peace, had chosen her side. She hadn't even called me. "Phase 2, then," I stated calmly. This was no longer just about finances. This was about family, about loyalty, and about the deep-seated rot that had infected my own children. And I was ready for it. The day of the board meeting dawned crisp and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within Vance Enterprises. I chose my outfit carefully. A sharp, navy blue Chanel suit, a symbol of quiet authority and enduring class. Penelope had invited me as a consulting advisor, a title that brought a small, private smile to my face. This wasn't about advising, this was about witnessing. When I entered the boardroom, the tension was palpable. Ethan sat at the head of the long mahogany table, flanked by nervous-looking board members. Serena, her face pale and drawn, was beside him, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Ethan's eyes, usually so arrogant, darted nervously around the room, finally settling on me with a flicker of resentment and fear. Penelope, ever composed, sat opposite Ethan. The meeting began with Ethan, attempting to assert control, launching into a pre-rehearsed speech about corporate integrity and protecting the company from hostile external forces. He kept referring to Penelope as a minority shareholder attempting to disrupt our stable leadership. He was clearly trying to rally the board against her, against me. Penelope allowed him to finish, her expression unreadable. Then, with a calm that bordered on icy, she smoothly corrected him. "Mr. Vance, I believe you are mistaken. As of this morning, I am not a minority shareholder. I am the majority shareholder. I now own 51% of Vance Enterprises." A collective gasp swept through the room. Ethan's face drained of all color. Serena let out a small, choked sound. The board members exchanged wide-eyed glances, their nervous energy morphing into outright shock. Penelope continued, her voice clear and precise. "I acquired an additional 1.2% from Mr. Arthur Jenkins and Miss Brenda Carlson yesterday evening. They were, shall we say, quite eager to sell after learning about the impending federal investigation into certain financial irregularities within the company. Arthur and Brenda, 2 long-standing board members and minor shareholders, had clearly jumped ship, saving themselves from the impending fallout. The room's temperature seemed to drop several degrees. The board members, who had initially believed they were attending a routine, albeit tense, meeting, now understood. They were not witnessing a debate. They were witnessing an execution. Penelope didn't waste another moment. She pushed a thick folder across the table, filled with pages of damning evidence. "Let's review some of these financial irregularities, shall we?" She began to read, her voice devoid of emotion, a litany of their transgressions. Credit card statements showing lavish personal expenditures, masked as business costs, bank transfers to offshore accounts, receipts for outrageous personal purchases that had no connection whatsoever to Vance Enterprises. Mr. Sterling, a stern-faced, older board member, cleared his throat, his voice trembling slightly. "Miss Stern, I have a question regarding this entry here. A. $60,000 watch, charged to the Children's Cancer Foundation account? For executive outreach?" Serena whimpered, her face now a blotchy mess. Ethan just stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on some point beyond the wall, as if trying to escape the reality unfolding around him. It was my cue. Slowly, deliberately, I stood up. The scraping of my chair against the polished floor echoed in the sudden silence. Every eye in the room, including Ethan's, turned to me. I walked to the head of the table, stopping directly behind Ethan. "Ethan," I said, my voice quiet but resonating with authority. "Do you remember when you were 7 years old? You stole a whole plate of Mrs. Albright's famous chocolate chip cookies. You ate every single one, then blamed poor Mrs. Henderson, our housekeeper. She lost her job, a woman with 3 children, all because you were too cowardly to admit your greed." Ethan flinched, his shoulders tensing. Serena buried her face in her hands. The memory, so old and seemingly insignificant, hung heavy in the air. A perfect metaphor for the pattern of his life. "You haven't changed, Ethan," I continued, my voice hardening. "You still steal, you still blame others, and you still believe you are above consequences. But not anymore." Penelope then spoke, her voice crisp and final. "Ethan Vance, as the majority shareholder of Vance Enterprises, I formally terminate your employment from all positions within this company, effective immediately. Your access to all company assets, accounts, and premises is hereby revoked." Before Ethan could even form a protest, 2 stern-faced security guards, whom Penelope had clearly arranged to be on standby, entered the room. They walked directly to Ethan and Serena. "Mr. Vance, Miss Vance, please gather your personal belongings. You are to be escorted from the premises." Ethan, finally rousing from his stupor, tried to argue, to plead, but it was useless. The guards were impassive, professional. Serena let out a sob as they gently, but firmly, guided them towards the door. They looked like common criminals, stripped of their power and dignity, their expensive clothes doing nothing to hide their shame. I watched them go, then walked to the large bay window that overlooked the street. I saw Ethan and Serena standing on the sidewalk, their figures small against the backdrop of the towering building that once represented their empire. They looked lost and small and utterly defeated. The rain had just started, a soft, cleansing shower. I smiled. Justice, I thought. A quiet, profound satisfaction settling over me. Was absolutely delicious. The days following the boardroom showdown were a whirlwind of quiet legal maneuvering and unexpected revelations. My phone rang constantly, but not with desperate calls from Ethan. Instead, it was Daniel, brimming with excitement. "Grandma, Professor Martinez is using our case for his capstone project on corporate governance. He said it's a perfect example of ethical failure and successful intervention." It was a small, sweet vindication. A sign that perhaps Daniel truly was on the path to making a positive difference. Even more surprising were the calls Daniel began receiving from Ethan's former employees. 3 of them contacted him, expressing their profound gratitude to me for stopping the hemorrhaging. They spoke of Ethan's ruthless layoffs, the arbitrary budget cuts, especially to the children's programs I had personally funded. All while Serena flaunted her never-ending luxury trips on social media. Their stories painted a picture of a company in quiet crisis, bled dry by its own leadership. Then came the call from Penelope, her voice gravely serious. "Eleanor, we've uncovered something far worse. Over the past 3 years, Ethan has systematically stolen $2.7 million from the employee pension funds." My blood ran cold. My grip tightened on the phone. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He siphoned it off, bit by bit, redirecting it into those offshore accounts for his and Serena's extravagant lifestyle, Penelope confirmed. It was carefully concealed, but the forensic audit found it. My blood pressure spiked. Stealing from the company's profits was one thing, an act of greed against me, but stealing from the pension funds, from the retirement savings of loyal employees who had dedicated their lives to Vance Enterprises, was unforgivable. It was an act of pure, unadulterated evil. "Every single penny, Penelope," I demanded, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Every last cent must be recovered." I want him to face the full consequences for this. Penelope assured me that steps were already in motion. Then, she dropped another bombshell. Eleanor, I've had 2 significant inquiries today. The FBI agents who have been monitoring the offshore accounts want to formally interview you. And the Wall Street Journal wants an exclusive, a feature piece with the headline, Business Matriarch Takes Down Corrupt Dynasty. My initial instinct was to refuse. I had always valued my privacy, but the thought of public vindication, of exposing Ethan and Serena's depravity to the world, slowly began to appeal to me. This wasn't just about financial justice anymore. This was about clearing my name, about setting the record straight, and about showing the world what truly mattered. Schedule the interview, Penelope, I said, my decision firm. I'll do it. A few days later, I found myself walking into Le Bernardin, a high-end restaurant where, just weeks earlier, Serena had celebrated her perceived victory over me, posting her smug selfies. This time, I was meeting Maria Rodriguez and Lena Kim, 2 of the former employees who had contacted Daniel. They had been integral to the children's programs, and both had been let go by Ethan under dubious circumstances. We sat at a quiet table, and as they spoke, a chilling new layer of betrayal unfolded. Miss Vance, Maria began, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and anger. When Ethan and Serena took over, they started spreading rumors. What kind of rumors? I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. Lena spoke next, her voice hushed. They told people that you were no longer mentally capable of running the company, and that's why Ethan needed full control. They used it to justify everything, from the budget cuts to the layoffs, saying they were structuring in Eleanor's best interest. My coffee cup, which I had been holding, trembled violently in my hand. I placed it down on the saucer with a clatter. Dementia. Mentally incompetent, my own son, my flesh and blood, had declared me insane to justify his theft and disrespect. The word stung more than any financial loss. It was an attack on my very identity, my sharp mind, my lifetime of dedication. The betrayal was deeper, more personal, than I had ever imagined. They even fired me from the foundation, Maria added, her voice cracking. They said I was too old-fashioned and didn't understand modern philanthropy. But it was just because I questioned where the money was really going. Looking at these women, I felt a surge of protectiveness and a renewed sense of purpose. Maria? Lena? I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil within me. I want to offer you both your positions back at Vance Enterprises, but not just your old roles. I want to give you appropriate authority, oversight, and a direct line to me and Penelope to ensure this kind of corruption never happens again. Their faces lit up with disbelief, then gratitude. It was then that a profound realization hit me. This wasn't just about revenge against Ethan and Serena anymore. This was about restoring integrity, about rebuilding what they had tried to destroy. This was about protecting the legacy of Vance Enterprises, about valuing loyalty, and about setting a new standard. I wasn't just seeking justice. I was leading a revolution, and Ethan, in his arrogance and self-absorption, had absolutely no idea what army was coming for him. The emergency shareholder meeting was set for the Pierce Conference Center, a venue I specifically chose for its large capacity and high public visibility. This wasn't just a business meeting. It was to be a public reckoning. I arrived, my spine straight, my resolve unwavering, feeling every one of my 67 years, but also the accumulated strength of a lifetime. Penelope Stern, a force of nature in her own right, commanded the podium. The large screens behind her flickered to life, displaying meticulously organized charts and graphs. Her voice, calm and authoritative, filled the room as she detailed the systematic corporate embezzlement that had crippled Vance Enterprises. Over the past 3 years, she announced, her words cutting through the tense silence. Mr. Ethan Vance and his wife, Serena Vance, have siphoned a total of $8.3 million from this company. This includes funds diverted from daily operations, from our employees' vital pension funds, and from the charitable foundations established to serve our community's most vulnerable. Each point was accompanied by irrefutable evidence projected onto the screens, clear bank transfers, forged invoices, doctored financial statements, and, most damningly, social media posts from Serena, flaunting their lavish lifestyle. The yacht, the private jet, the designer clothes, all purchased with stolen money. I could see the Wall Street Journal journalist, seated in the front row, scribbling furiously, his face alight with the recognition of a front-page exposé. The room, filled with shareholders, employees, and media, buzzed with outrage. But the true eruption came when Penelope revealed Ethan's ultimate act of audacity. During a period when Mr. Vance claimed artificially reduced operating funds necessitated staff reductions and budget cuts to vital programs, particularly the Children's Outreach Initiative, he simultaneously approved a 40% salary increase for himself. A roar of anger ripped through the room. People began to shout, murmuring about betrayal and injustice. It was then that I slowly rose from my seat, a quiet movement that nonetheless commanded immediate attention. The noise subsided, replaced by a tense silence as every eye turned to me. I walked deliberately towards the front, stopping a few feet from where Ethan and Serena sat, their faces ashen, their eyes refusing to meet mine. "Ethan," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a sharp blade. "Stand up." He hesitated, then slowly, reluctantly, rose to his feet. Serena remained slumped in her chair, a picture of despair. "You spread rumors, Ethan," I continued, my voice steady, precise. "You told everyone I was losing my mind, that I had dementia, that I was no longer fit to manage the company I built with my own hands. You excluded me from family dinners, from decisions, from my own life, treating me like a burden, an irrelevant old woman." My gaze was unwavering, piercing. "You forgot who taught you everything you knew about business, about ethics, about the difference between right and wrong. Today, you remember." The weight of my words settled on him, on the entire room. He flinched, his eyes finally meeting mine, filled with a mixture of fear and dawning shame. "As the majority shareholder of Vance Enterprises," I announced, my voice ringing with finality, "and with the full support of this board, I formally confirm Ethan Vance's termination from all positions within this company. Effective immediately, all wrongfully terminated employees will be rehired, and every stolen dollar, every single penny, will be returned and reinvested into the company's future and its foundations." Penelope stepped forward, her voice adding the final, crushing details. "Furthermore, I can confirm that criminal charges have been officially filed against Mr. Ethan Vance and Miss Serena Vance. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is actively involved, and Mr. Vance's passport has been surrendered to the authorities." The public nature of his disgrace was complete. His shame would follow him everywhere. A brand burned deep. As the meeting concluded, and Ethan and Serena were once again escorted out amidst flashing cameras and whispers, their lawyer, a slick man in a cheap suit, approached Penelope and me. "My clients will be suing for elder manipulation and psychological duress," he declared, his voice full of bluster. "Being excluded from family dinner, the emotional trauma, the accusations of incompetence, these are all attacks on their mental well-being." Penelope and I exchanged a look. "So, let me get this straight," Penelope said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "They claim Eleanor is manipulating them because she's mentally incompetent, yet they're also suffering psychological duress because she accused them of incompetence? Which is it?" The lawyer stammered, clearly outmatched. The sheer absurdity of their contradictory defense was almost comical. "Penelope," I said, a new idea forming, "prepare for a press conference. A big one. If they want to claim I'm a frail, confused old woman, let's give them a demonstration of exactly how frail and confused I am. I think it's time for the world to see the matriarch of Vance Enterprises, in all her incompetence, clarify a few things." The battle was far from over, but the tides had irrevocably turned. The press conference was a blur of flashing lights and eager questions. I stood at the podium, a large screen behind me displaying the meticulously compiled financial records I had gathered over 3 years, long before I ever suspected the depth of the betrayal. This was my moment, not just for justice, but for public clarity. I am here today to address the ludicrous claims made by my son, Ethan Vance, and his wife, Serena Vance, I began, my voice clear and steady. They claim I have diminished mental capacity. Let me assure you, the woman who graduated from Wharton with honors, who built Vance Enterprises from a small textile shop into a $300 million company, and who, with the help of my legal team, uncovered a complex web of embezzlement and fraud, is far from mentally diminished. My words were met with a murmur of approval from the journalists. Then I addressed their claim of psychological duress. They also claim emotional trauma from being excluded from family dinners. Let me tell you about real psychological duress. It is the agonizing pain of discovering your own son, your flesh and blood, has stolen millions from a children's cancer foundation. It is the sickening realization that he pilfered the pension funds of loyal employees, people who dedicated their lives to this company, to fuel his and his wife's extravagant lifestyle. That, ladies and gentlemen, is psychological duress, not missing a family dinner. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. Ethan and Serena Vance are not victims. They are criminals who have been caught, prosecuted, and will be held accountable for their actions. A reporter from the front row called out, "Mrs. Vance, what's next for Vance Enterprises?" I looked directly into the cameras, a confident smile touching my lips. Excellence, integrity, and a fierce return to the values that built this company. We are moving forward, stronger and more transparent than ever before. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Daniel. "Grandma, you're trending on Twitter. Business Matriarch is #1 worldwide." A small, private thrill went through me. My life had taken an unexpected turn, a complete transformation. My first board meeting as the new chairman of Vance Enterprises was held the following week. The atmosphere was entirely different from the last. There was a palpable sense of relief and renewed purpose. I laid out my robust reconstruction strategy. We will begin by rehiring every employee wrongfully terminated by the previous management. Every stolen dollar will be returned to its rightful place, and we will implement rigorous new oversight to eliminate any corrupt practices. This company will operate with complete transparency and unwavering ethical standards. Penelope, now officially the company's general counsel, reported remarkable early results. "Morale among employees is at an all-time high," she stated, a rare smile on her face. "The efficiency of our charitable foundations has significantly increased, and we've already secured 3 new major clients, drawn to our renewed commitment to ethical business practices." Mr. Sterling, the veteran board member, raised a hand. "Mrs. Vance, regarding the criminal trials, will you be involved?" "Indeed, Mr. Sterling," I replied, my voice firm. "I will be the government's star witness. I intend to see this through to the very end." In the months that followed, Vance Enterprises not only recovered but thrived. We received recognition from Harvard Business School for our swift and ethical corporate turnaround. The Wall Street Journal and Forbes published glowing articles about our resurgence, highlighting our commitment to integrity. Dr. Anya Sharma, our new Chief Financial Officer, presented a 5-year projection of 20% annual growth, driven, she emphasized, by a foundation of integrity and a renewed focus on innovation. One of my proudest moments came when I formally launched the new Vance Enterprises Scholarship Program, fully funded by the recovered stolen assets from Ethan and Serena. It was a testament to the fact that even from the ashes of betrayal, something good, something meaningful, could be built. During a casual chat after a board meeting, Mr. Davies, another long-standing board member, looked at me with a thoughtful expression. "Eleanor," he said, "I've known you for decades, but honestly, your transformation, it's quite something. How do you describe yourself now?" I considered his question for a moment, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "Today, Mr. Davies, I am the chairman of Vance Enterprises. I am a federal witness against my own son. I am trending on social media, apparently. But most importantly, I am a woman who has found her voice, reclaimed her power, and redefined her legacy. My guiding philosophy, I realized, was now clearer than ever, leading through transparency, accountability, and earned respect, not through fear or the manipulation of others. The future was bright, and I was ready for it. 6 months after the public reckoning, life had found a new rhythm. The ultimate culmination of our efforts arrived at the National Business Ethics Conference. Vance Enterprises, under my renewed leadership, was awarded the prestigious Corporate Integrity Award. The ceremony was held at the magnificent Lincoln Center. I walked onto the stage, a surge of pride swelling in my chest. Daniel was in the front row, beaming, his eyes shining with admiration. Penelope, ever the professional, subtly recorded the moment on her phone, while a flurry of journalists captured my triumph. My acceptance speech was brief, heartfelt, and powerful. I spoke not just of recovering from corruption, but of thriving through ethical leadership. Integrity, I declared, my voice resonating through the grand hall, is not merely a moral obligation, it is a strategic advantage. It builds trust, inspires loyalty, and ultimately, leads to both moral and financial success. The audience rose, a thunderous 3-minute standing ovation filling the room. It was a moment of profound vindication, not just for me, but for every individual who believed in doing things the right way. Post-ceremony, I was mobbed by reporters. My phone, once a source of dread, now buzzed with requests, documentary proposals, lucrative book deals, even an invitation to deliver the commencement address at Harvard Business School. "Mrs. Vance," a young reporter asked, "what advice do you have for other family businesses facing similar struggles?" I looked directly at him, my message clear. Loyalty to family does not require tolerance for criminal behavior. My only regret is allowing love to delay justice. Sometimes, the hardest decisions are the ones that ultimately save everything. Later, at the after-party, the calls continued to pour in. Business leaders, politicians, even a sitting senator, all eager to offer congratulations and, perhaps, a word of advice on navigating their own complex family dynamics. Amidst the celebratory chaos, Daniel found me, his eyes full of warmth. "Grandma," he asked softly, "are you happy?" I took his hand, my gaze sweeping across the vibrant room, then settling on his earnest face. "I'm at peace, Daniel," I replied, a genuine smile gracing my lips. "For the first time in years, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing what I was always meant to do. And yes, that makes me deeply, truly happy." Another 6 months passed, and my new life continued to flourish. I had moved into a beautiful, spacious loft downtown, a bright space filled with modern art. It was a sanctuary, a place where I could breathe, create, and focus on my new purpose, using my experience and resources to fund dreams and foster ethical business. Daniel was a constant presence, visiting regularly, his enthusiasm for ethical business practices growing every day. Professor Martinez, true to his word, had started writing a book about the Vance Enterprises case, with my full cooperation. My phone still rang constantly, not with calls from Ethan, but from at least 15 other family businesses, seeking my guidance on corporate governance and navigating their own generational conflicts. I had, quite unexpectedly, become an expert in family business ethics. The Wilson Foundation, now fully revitalized, had launched a robust scholarship program, funded entirely by Serena's recovered stolen money. It was transforming the lives of 50 young women, providing them with opportunities they might never have had. Every success was a quiet rebuke to the greed that had nearly destroyed us. One afternoon, Penelope called, her voice barely concealing her excitement. "Eleanor," she announced, "Netflix just approved the documentary. The working title is Eleanor Vance, the Woman Who Wouldn't Disappear." I chuckled. The irony was not lost on me. Later that week, Daniel stopped by, offering an update on his parents, a topic I rarely brought up. "Dad's working as a junior analyst at some small firm downtown," he said, shaking his head. "He looks smaller, somehow, like he'd shrunk." He then added, "Mom, Serena, she divorced him, moved to LA to be a lifestyle influencer under a fake name. Apparently, she's trying to get a reality show. I felt no satisfaction, no joy in their downfall, just a peaceful indifference. I miss who I thought they were. Daniel, I admitted, my gaze drifting to a vibrant, abstract painting on my wall. But I don't miss the reality of who they actually were. That person, that reality, was toxic, and I'm free from it now. A few days later, my phone vibrated. It was Penelope. Ethan wants a meeting, Eleanor. He wants to apologize. I didn't hesitate. Tell him I'm busy, Penelope. Tell him I'm busy building something beautiful, something meaningful, something that truly contributes to the world. If he wants to be a part of something meaningful, he can apply to work at the foundation like any other candidate. I hung up, then, with a profound sense of closure, scrolled through my missed calls, 17 of them from Ethan Vance. I deleted them all without a second thought. True victory, I realized, was not revenge. It was peace, purpose, and the quiet understanding that my enemy's absence had, in the end, become my greatest gift.